All right, good evening. This is Dr. Casey Reason here, checking in. I am absolutely delighted to be welcoming our guests here tonight. I have, am I coming through twice, Chris? Is it better now?
You were. I muted you.
Well, so good. You've got to hear it twice. So anybody that's dialing in, I apologize. My crew here. I'm usually a technology, at least a competent technology guy, and I'm causing all kinds of havoc today. So I apologize. But welcome, guests, again to our series, guys. We've been doing this series for a couple of years now with the NEA and different collaborative partners. But right now, I've been working with the NEA several years now, and we're really proud of this Innovative Educators series where on about a monthly basis, we bring you really innovative educators that are doing really cool things. Many times over the last 2 years, we've featured authors who are educator authors who are bringing brand new, exciting titles to to this session. And we bring them to you on a national level. And what we do is we have an hour-long webinar where you get to actually meet the people that are writing the books that you're reading and that you're using. So we're so excited that tonight we've got another one of our authors. We'd like to thank our partner Solution Tree. We can even see that, Tina, you've been great about getting the slide there on there, but the Solution Tree title. And thank the publisher Solution Tree. They've been very cooperative in helping us find and secure and support some really good authors with some brand new titles. So you're going to have a chance tonight to hear some, we hope will be a really helpful and amazing learning opportunity for you as an educator, because as an educator, as you continue to learn, you'll continue to grow. And so that's the big impetus behind this Innovative Educators series. I'd like to also, before we begin, one more time, thank the NEA for being really creative. If you're dialing in now and really haven't paid as much attention to what's happening with the National Education Association, they've done so many innovative things with the Great Public Schools Network, with so many initiatives, and you may not even be aware of it. When I was a teacher, I absolutely wasn't as aware of what was happening on a national level with the NEA, and I hope you're paying attention because they're doing some really great things. So if this is an impetus to help you get involved, then how great is that? I'd also like to thank Brandy Bixler and Christopher Thomas for your wonderful leadership with the NEA. They're two great friends and great leaders at the NEA who provide great leadership with this experience. And if it wasn't for them, they make this highly efficient and organized and won't let technophiles or technophobes like me who wind up turning things upside down. They keep it all running smooth. An audio file of this will be created and will be posted, so you'll have a chance to see and hear this and share this with friends. And please do. This is a shareable resource, and I know that Dr. Boogren will absolutely appreciate you sharing this as well. So I'd like to begin now by introducing our guest speaker. So again, our presentation will be about an hour, and we will spend the next hour with her, and we will we'll have her present for almost half of that, a little more than half of that maybe, and we'll chat a little bit. And then as we're going, if you see things, please write them down, take a note, because there's going to be a chance for you to ask some questions at the end. So again, Tina, welcome. We can see you there. It looks like you've got an awful lot of bling behind you there. We're going to have you explain a little bit. You got an awful lot of awards. If those are all degrees, we know you're doctorally prepared, Tina, but you've got a lot of bling behind you. But before I have you speak, Dr. Boogren is a former classroom teacher, an English department chair. She was a teacher mentor, instructional coach, a professional development deliverer, an athletic coach, a building level leader, and she's also has presented at school, district, state, national levels. She's been a featured presenter at a number of national conferences, including Noble Educator Nights. She's was a 2007 Colorado Teacher of the Year finalist, and she received the Douglas County School District Outstanding Teacher Award for 8 years in a row from 2002 to 2009. She's written numerous articles for the National Writing Project, The Voice, The Quarterly. She's the author of in the first few years, Reflections of a beginning teacher, supporting beginning teachers, the beginning teacher's field guide, embarking on the first years, and Take Time for You, self-care action plans for educators, which was an Independent Publishers Gold Award winner in the education category. He's a co-author of Strategies to Motivate and Inspire Students, along with some guy named Robert Marzano. So I think we may have heard of him. Tina, good job. Daryl Scott and Ming Lee Newcomb as a contributing author to Richard Kellogg's Middle School Teaching, a Guide to Methods and Resources, and Robert Marzano's Becoming a Reflective Teacher. Dr. Boogren holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Iowa, which is a great school, a master's degree in administration endorsement from the University of Colorado, Denver, also a great school, and a doctorate from the University of Denver in education administration and policy studies. Dr. Boogren, thank you for being here. Tell you what, that's an awful lot to accomplish. Now I know why all that bling behind you. Now are those sports, are some of those sports trophies? You were a coach. What did you coach, Tina?
All that means is I'm old, really, is all that means. We have the degrees up here, but then there's just a lot of stuff. That's not all. I wasn't.
Well, how nice of you to let us like peer into your office space there. It's our people who are guests. We love doing that. It's kind of cool.
Right? Exactly.
What did I leave out that is something delightful about your background that I left off that our guests would love to know about you? What did we leave out in that intro?
It's perfect timing. So there's a little bit more about me. It's great. I don't know if I can give you my dog is just sitting right here. He really could care less about what's happening. He's got a bone, so he's real happy. So we're just going to so here's a little bit of the personal stuff about me. What I put up here is a picture of the airport because I feel like I live at the airport. This is like everyone. I call this time of the year the season of sacrifice because it's a really busy time. So I actually head out tomorrow. But so there's a little bit of the personal stuff about me. Some of those.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. And I see there's this chat. I'm reminding all the folks there is a chat function at the bottom, and I'll try to monitor that as we go and gather some questions. And Karen said to everybody that she's adorable. Now, I don't know if the dog's adorable or Tina's adorable, maybe both. But I see that we've already got an adorable live. But if you guys want to make any comments as you go in the chat function, we absolutely can, and we'll take it. But Tina, if you're ready to get started, and thank you, Karen, we're having some fun with your comment there. But if you're ready to go, jump right in and tell us about your topic tonight.
I will. Thank you, Karen. You're my new favorite person. Thank you. I'm going to assume it's not my dog. I'm just going to go with that. So thank you. Thank you. And you guys, first of all, I really want to thank you for being here. Those of you that are here live, and I know some people, I absolutely get it signed up to watch this when it works for you. So whenever you are making the time to watch this, just deep, heartfelt gratitude for that. And here's what I always, whenever I get started with time like this, I just kind of invite you to go all in, to kind of take a deep breath and go all in. I know there's a temptation sometimes of like, I'm going to kind of pay attention to this webinar, but I'm going to get all this other stuff done. And we know that multitasking is a myth, right? We can't pay attention to two things at once. So and I beg you to kind of go all in with this because this is really all about you. So my hope tonight, like our major learning outcomes are listed as this, really of just talking about self-care. I want to give you a little bit of background and research that I find fascinating, and then some super practical things that you can take away and start doing immediately in relation to kind of bringing your own best to the classroom and outside of the classroom. So again, I thank everyone for being here. So these are the formal learning outcomes. I'm going to summarize this like this. This is my hope, what you see here on the screen. In fact, if you want to take a screenshot of this and make it your phone saver, I highly recommend it. I actually have this hanging behind my desk that I can see right here. So this is kind of our big takeaway and reminder. We know this, but man, we chose a profession where it's really easy to forget this. So this is kind of my goal, that I hope we walk away remembering this tonight. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of the research in the background. There's a couple reasons for this. Number one, I'm a total nerd and I love the research. So I just keep digging in and finding more and more information to share with folks. And also because I really believe in making sure that everyone understands that there is hard research behind this. When we talk about self-care and teacher wellness, this is not just fluff. This is not bubble baths and drinking wine, which is, they're all great things, I realize, but this is going to a way deeper level of really understanding the background and the research piece so that we can utilize this all for the sake of our students. So I'm going to do this in kind of an interactive way, which will kind of keep your attention here. So I'm going to leave this on the screen for just a second, and I'm going to have you take your best guess as to what you think that percentage is. If you're watching with someone else, it's kind of fun to bounce off of each other what you think that number is. All right, and I'll say this, when I do these presentations, when I do workshops and keynotes live, when I ask for feedback on this, you know, before I even show the research, the fascinating part is everyone guesses extremely high numbers here. Typically, the lowest that I have heard is about 63%, and then it's usually up from there all the way up to like 110, which makes the math teacher's head explode. But like, we know without even showing the research that if most of us immediately come up with a high number there, that says something. So I'm going to show you the number. You might be a little bit surprised by this number, but I really want to make sure that you read the entire sentence when this comes up on the screen. So 61%, which at first people are kind of like, oh, that feels low, but look at that statement, always or often stressful. So this was a massive study done by the American Federation of Teachers in 2017. And to put this in perspective, the general population would put that number at 30%. So that is significantly higher. So I'm going to put a few more bullet points on the screen, which is all the bad news. So I'm going to bring us down, and then I'm going to pull us back up. So this is the bad news. I'm just going to let you read these when they come up. And this. And this. Which usually when we read that last one, there's this kind of a nervous laughter that everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm in touch with that for sure, right? So sleep deprived. There was another study that I found, and this one is being published widely, and it's the number that is probably more familiar to everyone. It was a smaller study that was done also in 2017. So just background on the study, it was only 121 teachers. They looked in this Midwestern school district, but what they found is this. 93% of those teachers, 93% of those teachers felt high stress, high burnout, and low coping. And that is getting shared widely. And that's pretty much, that's what a lot of us, when I asked you to kind of guess that number, said those really high numbers. So this feels kind of in tune with what we're thinking. And I know if our brain is tired, I did the math for you, which means if you flip that, only 7% we're low stress, low burnout, and high coping. So clearly we have a problem here. This is not good, because when I put this statement on the screen, I'm gonna have you read it and just decide if this is true or false. And we know it's not only true, it is so true. Yes, so true. So this is not, here's where I really like to talk about when we use the word self-care, it's really not selfish at all. At the end of the day, everything that we do is for our students. But the reality is we got to take one step back and make sure that our teachers in the classroom, our principals, our counselors, anyone that works with kids, all of us, feel so good and so whole and so energized and ready to go that is contagious to their students. So it's not like we talk about student achievement over here and then we talk about teacher wellness and healthcare over here. These absolutely go together. And I think for a long time, we just never talked about this. You know, I'm starting to see and doing more work in schools around social emotional learning, which is fantastic. And we've needed this for a long time. And the core belief is that we can't talk about the social emotional learning for students unless we're talking about the teachers alongside that. So another statement to fill in the blank here. This one's a fun one. So if you're on your own, I'm just gonna have you take a guess at what you think that number is. If you're sitting with someone else, just start adding up in your mind what you think that is. And the answer is 1,500. So let me give you a little bit more on this. This is fascinating to me. So that's educational decisions every day. We make way more decisions than that. Think about the minute your alarm goes off in the morning, you have to decide, am I hitting snooze or not, right? I mean, decision, 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 decision. I just was at the grocery store earlier today laughing out loud because I went to go pick up shampoo and I went down the shampoo aisle. It's not like there's the one choice. Like, there's so many decisions that we have to make. I also know, you know, this is the average teacher, which who knows what that is. I do a whole lot of work with brand new teachers, and I don't know what the number is, but I guarantee you that that number is significantly higher when we start talking about beginning teachers, because just by virtue of being new, there are so many, everything is an educational decision. So when we break that number down, typically most of us are in front of students 6 hours a day. I know we work way longer than 6 hours, but in front of students 6 hours a day, that breaks down to more than 4 educational decisions per minute. So I got really fascinated by this and just started digging into the research to learn more about this. So and I am not here to say that other jobs don't make decisions. Every job makes decisions. For us, if we think about, man, they're powerful decisions, right? We have kids at the end of the line making those decisions. So I started really digging into what is the toll that it takes to make all of these decisions, because that is a huge number. So here's what happens. There's a very real thing called decision fatigue. What happens when we get decision fatigue kind of sinks in. So we make all of these choices, and what really starts to be impacted by this is our willpower. And many of you probably sitting there right now are like, oh my God, my whole life makes sense now, right? So decisions, 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 so many of them. This is why for some of you, when you go home at the end of the day and someone has the nerve to ask you what's for dinner, your head explodes. This is what's happening. So I kept digging through here. So we know when our willpower is depleted, it leads to this and this. So I really started to dig in and learn about the brain. So when our brain makes all of these decisions, willpower is depleted. Our brain seeks to make 2 shortcuts. So this is fascinating to me. So here's the first shortcut. I'm going to let you look at this and see if this seems familiar. So we act impulsively, right? We don't think through the consequences. Here's my example. Have you ever sent an email in the evening and then got back to school the next morning and thought, oh no, right? We did not think through the consequences. So that's the first shortcut that our brain makes. The next shortcut that our brain makes is this. Do not make the easiest, just do nothing. So here's that example I have for that one. So here's the scenario. Right? We wake up in the morning and we say, I am going to the gym after work today. Without a doubt, I got my bag packed. There is no reason I'm going to the gym. And then we go to work and we make all of those decisions. And at the end of the day, our brain says, you know what's easier than going to the gym? Not going to the gym. You know what's easier than making dinner? Not making dinner, right? And then we wonder and we get so frustrated with ourselves and talk this negative self-talk to ourselves. What is wrong with us? Why don't we have more willpower? We need more willpower. And the truth of the matter is, it's out of our hands. Our brain is taking over. So first of all, I hope just hearing that, it helps things just kind of make sense. It's not your fault, right? We know, gosh, we can have the greatest intentions. This explains so much about, even think about your classes or the work that you do at the end of the day. This is why I get real nervous, and I understand why we have to do it schedule-wise. But man, when we have meetings after school where we're making serious educational decisions, we should be very cautious in that, because think about the brains that we're all bringing to the table there. So the big question becomes, what do we do about this, right? And here's what we just have to get this tattooed on the back of our eyelids, right? The solution is to regulate and automate, remove any decision that we possibly can, so that we can hold on to some of that brain power at the end of the day or throughout the day to be able to make those hard decisions. You know, if we think about it, typically when I do workshops, we start talking about, oh my gosh, it's highly likely that my willpower is done by 9 o'clock in the morning if I think about all of the decisions that I have made. So regulate and automate. So really the key here, if we can create those daily habits and rituals that become habit, that become routine, that we don't have to think about, oh my goodness, that is going to help everything else. And that's how we're going to get our willpower back. And that's how we're going to be able to make different decisions. So it's kind of cool to pause here and think about, you know, kind of go through your day and think about what are the things that I can regulate and automate. So examples to get you started, things at home, you know, we know this. How many of us are doing this, right? Making our lunch the night before, planning what you're going to wear the night before, figuring out, having your bag packed, putting your keys in the same spot so you don't spend the whole morning running around your house trying to find your keys, right? Packing your water bottle so you've got it on hand. Just as many things for yourself and for your family as well. If we can get a schedule, if you know you go to bed at the same time every single night. If you, all of those things that we can do, and then anything at school. A teacher, I was doing a workshop similar to this last week, and a teacher said to me, she has a new motto. She said, if it doesn't take a college degree, I'm not doing it. Meaning she was going to get her kids to take responsibility in her classroom, giving them jobs, things to do, down to, she said, I am going to have one kid watch my water bottle, and when my water bottle gets low, their job is to make sure that they fill that water bottle. Anything we can do to remove those decisions. So that's the number one takeaway that I want us to remember. So what I encourage folks to do is just, it's startling and fascinating to think about, you know, starting tomorrow morning, just have a little piece of scratch paper. The minute you wake up, just start writing down what are all the decisions that you're making throughout the day. And you're going to realize, I mean, it's a ton before you even get to school. And then think about, is there anything, which of those might you be able to regulate and automate? An example that I give oftentimes, I have given my life over to the Waze app, W-A-Z-E, right? Every time I get my car, because there's too much construction, that Waze app could say, I think you need to drive off this cliff. And I'd be like, well, I guess this is where I'm supposed to go. But anyway, I just want to remove as many decisions as possible. So that's kind of the fascinating thing when we think about all of these decisions that we make and what it does. And then again, what we can do to kind of get a hold of that. Because at the end of the day, this is my absolute hill to die on, what you see right here. So I have had the wonderful good fortune for 9 years now for training on the Marzano resources and solution tree side. And when I started, I trained solely on the Marzano resources side, and I trained on Dr. Marzano's amazing work. Here's what I know. We can take the most incredible strategies that have a ton of research behind them and that present those strategies in an engaging way, make it easy to use, take back to our school. But here's what I know. At the end of the day, if the person providing those strategies looks like this, that strategy is not going to have the desired effect that we want. So this is my life's mission now. First of all, I want to get you up out of the street, right? I think we're laying in the middle of the street here, and get you feeling good again. This taps into also all we know about our attrition rates are still atrocious for new teachers. We're still losing 50% within the first 5 years. We're not actually safe at 5 years. We're still losing between 40 and 50% within the first 7 years. So I think one of the missing pieces that has been for all of us for a really long time is just not taking care of ourselves. To, again, that I'm on airplanes numerous times a week, and it's the reminder that we have to secure our own oxygen mask before we assist others. So that this is my life's mission. So how do we do that? So in my first book on self-care, which is the Take Time for You book, I reintroduced us to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So all I did is I took Maslow's easily recognized hierarchy that's usually presented to us in a pyramid, and for metaphor's sake, turned it into a ladder. So you will recognize those are all the levels of Maslow's hierarchy. And again, it's a hierarchy knowing that we have got to get those bottom rungs really solid before we can move to the next rung. You know, we want to live at levels 5 and 6. That's where self-actualization, and transcendence are. But there's no way that we can get there if those bottom 4 rungs are not super solid. So I just took Maslow's hierarchy, and to make this more relatable, to ourselves, for that reflection piece, is I just turned those levels into questions. So you might even take a photo of this screen right here to just think about, if you have this on hand, my recommendation, and I walk through this in that book, Take Time for You, of allowing yourself a few different times during your day to pause, take a breath, and check in with yourself, asking yourself the questions that are on this ladder, starting at the very bottom. And the thinking here is that the minute that you get to a question that you cannot answer positively to, you stop and do whatever you can in that moment to turn that no into a yes. And I will tell you from experience in my own personal life and the thousands and thousands of teachers that I've had the incredible opportunity to work with, most of us get stuck at that first level. So can you picture you're going through your day, you pause, you take a deep breath, and you ask, are my basic needs met? And you think, I haven't used the bathroom in 8 hours. I have not had anything besides coffee. How many mini Snickers bars does it take to count as lunch, right? So many of us have been in that position. So we don't go any further on the ladder. We pause right there then, and we think, so what can I do right now to turn that no to a yes? Maybe we go use the restroom. Maybe we go grab some water. Maybe we promise ourselves that we are going to actually stop and eat lunch today. Maybe we set an alarm on our phone for bedtime to make sure that we get enough sleep tonight. And then what's crazy and fascinating and super hopeful is that if we continue to do that, we will feel better. If we actually commit to that and engage in things that help us at these different levels, we will feel better, these small, teeny, tiny things. So I am going to share with you just a couple takeaway strategies. In the book, Take Time for You, I actually take us through this ladder, and each chapter is one of these levels and a whole slew of different strategies to think about and try so that you can figure out what works best for you. Because here's what we know. Different strategies work for different people. What works for me may not at all be what works for you. What works for your colleague might not be what works for you. We know this is the truth. So, hold on. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My dog was eating my pencil. So sorry. So different strategies for different people. So starting with level one. So level one, man, this is the 3 doozies. So level one consists of our diet, our exercise, and our sleep. And in workshops, when we talk about this one, I always ask for a show of hands. How many of you are just crushing it in all 3 areas? And everyone's like, oh. For many of us, these areas are kind of like whack-a-mole. We'll get one under control and then something else will pop up. So there's a lot to unravel here, more than we have time for tonight. But there is one thing that's so simple, and it's available to all of us, and it can make such a huge impact. And if you're doing it already, keep doing it. This is your validation. And if not, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Just flat out drink more water. Here's all the reasons why. This is just a sampling. There's more reasons than this. I'm just going to put those up here on the screen. Like, gosh, it's something that we can do that really can make a teeny tiny thing that can make a huge difference. So I see a couple people drinking their water right now. Yes. So there's varying recommendations of how much to drink. In general, what I read and what I've adapted for myself, if you take your body weight and divide it in half, that's how many ounces you should drink a day. And for a lot of us, that's like, woo, that's a lot more than we thought. And that is not, if you live somewhere that's hot or humid, you might want to drink more than that. And that's if you don't exercise. So man alive, my Nalgene bottle, I can easily drink one of those. I need to drink a minimum of 2 of those. That requires conscious effort to do. So I have a really fun app that I want to recommend to you guys. It's free. It's called Plant Nanny. I put a screenshot up here. You get to choose your plant, and every time you drink water, you record it, and your plant grows, and it's super happy. And if you don't, it dies, and it makes you feel terrible. So it's just good motivation. One of the things that the research is really clear on, if we want to make a change, we need to track what we're doing in some way, if we can track our progress. So this is a super teeny tiny small step that we can take that can actually make us feel really good. So that's my recommendation for level 1. For level 2, safety, man, you know, of course, all of these levels we could spend a whole day talking about. To kind of ground us, you know, safety involves when we feel like we're in control, we feel safe. And for a lot of us as educators and just human beings, I really like to feel in control. If things feel out of my control, I start to feel really anxious. And so I know that that's really tapping on this safety level. So again, I always use the example because I'm just in airplanes a lot, and so much of my travel is absolutely out of my control. And when things start to go awry, that really kicks my anxiety up. And what's dawned on me, well, here's what's happening. My safety has been impacted. As a side note, our first and second level of the hierarchy there, our physiological needs and our safety needs, if those are not solid, we cannot even pay attention. I'm going to say that again. If our physiological and safety needs are not solid, we cannot even pay attention. And by the way, this is absolutely true for our students as well. I co-authored, as you heard in the bio, I co-authored a book with Bob Marzano, Mingli Newcomb, and Daryl Scott called Motivating and Inspiring Students, where we take this hierarchy and talk about all these levels for students. And so this approach that I'm talking about tonight is talking about for ourselves as the educators, but man alive, we know that this is true for our students as well. So I'm going to have you do something here. So when we think about safety, there's some big things we can do, but just in terms of a little tiny hack, which the 180 Days of Self-Care, the second book that I wrote, is all about these teeny tiny hacks. So I'm kind of combining both worlds here. One teeny tiny thing that we can do, I'm going to encourage you, if you've got your phone close to you, grab your phone, find a photo that's on your phone that when you look at it, it makes you feel calm and centered and safe. And what I'm going to invite you to do, I'm going to set this timer for 60 seconds, is to make that photo your screensaver on your phone. And then that is going to serve as your anchor, meaning this is how I use it. When I feel myself getting anxious, feel kind of out of control, and I can feel it in my body, that icky feeling, most of us have our phone close by. I can grab that phone and I can look at the screensaver. And this is a photo that when I look at it, I'm not doing anything with my phone. I'm just looking at it. That reminds me to take a breath once again and recenter myself. So to really encourage you and make that connection, you know, a lot of habits, you know, regulate and automate. Habits tend to stick if we tie it to something that already is a habit, and most of us have a habit of looking at our phone. So if we can utilize that, make that screensaver something that when we look at it, it just reminds us we are safe, we're okay. Take a deep breath, find our center again. That can really help us if we answer no to the question of, do I feel safe? That's one way to turn that no into a yes. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to keep us going. Level 3 is belonging, and I had to put a quote from Queen Brene Brown here. So this whole idea of belonging, again, we see belonging needs so clearly with students. It's also true for ourselves as well. And I so hope that those of you that are on here, that when you go to work, you feel like you have found your people, that you feel like you can be yourself and that you truly belong. One of the hacks, the quick things to do to help with belonging is this research that says people who laugh together more like each other better. Ta-da! So I'm going to see if I can make you chuckle tonight as you're watching this. So there is a fantastic book. It's sitting right on my desk here, called F in Exams. It's real student test answers. And every time I'm sitting at my desk working, I pick this up and it just makes me giggle. So I have a few of those in here to just make you laugh. Here's one. This is a kid, okay, when I look at this, that I think, I really want to pull this kid aside and ask, for the love of God, the amount of time that it took him to figure this out, he probably could have cured an incurable disease. Like, that's a lot of brain power there. How about this one makes me giggle too. This is a kid I definitely want to meet. I hope you're singing in your head. This one's my favorite. At least they check their work. 4 and 2 is 6. Got it. Perfect. So I don't know. I like you guys more. Hopefully you like me as well, right? Laughing together. So going back to the laughter idea of belonging, I've seen so many schools, like before they start their PLC meeting, when they have the connection time, I worked with a group and they shared, during their connection time, they had to share the funniest thing they heard, said, or saw that week. Oh my God, just hysterical, just hysterical. Just to remember that our jobs can be really funny if we can take a step back and kind of laugh together, how huge that is. So then moving up to level 4 is esteem. And whoo, this one's a tricky one. Here's what I want us to walk away. Again, I've got Queen Brene Brown here. She's a researcher, she's a writer. If you're not familiar with her, she's my spirit animal. But when I think about esteem, I think of this quote from her. So in a nutshell, when we think about esteem, you know, if you consider the voice inside your head, for many of us, that voice that talks to us isn't very kind oftentimes. And if we can start to train our brain to change that voice, which is no easy thing, this doesn't happen overnight, but if we can start to hear that voice, recognize when that voice is saying not nice things, and just knock it off. Here's what I say, picture someone that you love, picture a child that you love. And if the things that you say in your head, you would never say to that child, but you're saying to yourself, stop. And remind yourself to only talk about yourself like you would talk to yourself like you would to someone you love. Which means I'm going to give you a new vocabulary word to take home for this level. It's one of my favorite words. So I want us all to walk away tonight remembering that we are flawsome. Of course we have flaws, who doesn't, but we are awesome anyway. And I'm going to prove it to you. So I hope you do this. Again, grab that phone. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to take a selfie. And see, when I ask you to take a selfie, I bet that voice inside your head is starting to say some things to you. And what I want you to do is say, nope, I am flawsome. So if you've got someone with you, grab them to be in the photo. You don't have to share this with anyone, but if you want, if you're feeling super brave, post it because you are #flawsome. There I am. I'm going to set that timer for 60 seconds. Just take that selfie. I love it so much. And just the reason that you are doing this, let me remind you, it's not about the selfie. It's that typically when we take the selfie, that triggers that voice inside our head that sometimes does not say super nice things. So you are going to practice talking to yourself like you would talk to someone you love as you do this. And you're going to remind yourself that you are flawsome. I hope that I check back into Twitter, and yes, I see some people doing it tomorrow, and I see these photos. They're gorgeous, you guys. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You've got 20 more seconds. People always ask, can I filter it? Heck, yes, you can filter it. We live in a glorious time. You've got 10 seconds left. I see some beautiful photos happening. Awesome. Yay, thank you. Okay, and then finally, oh, I had to put this in here. So this is a group that I work with. Oh my gosh, I love them. They're out of Minnesota. So they created their own Flawsome Club. This is their own self-care club. They made t-shirts, you guys, that say Flawsome. That is me with them. They made their own self-care club. I had to put a shout out to them in there. And then I just want to briefly hit on levels 5 and 6. So, you know, the first 4 levels are about avoiding negative physical and physiological sensations. When we get to levels 5 and 6, we have a whole shift. This is where we want to be. It shifts to really living our best lives here. So there's good news. Sometimes people panic and feel like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of work to do in those bottom 4 rungs. I'm never going to be living at levels 5 and 6. And the reality is it's not true. We can still tap into levels 5 and 6. There's a couple of super easy things that we can do. And also remember that levels 5 and 6, unfortunately, it's not like we get there and then we get to stay there forever. We kind of move in and out. So there's 2 huge hacks that even if you feel like, man, everything else is going terrible, not drinking enough water, not sleeping, having a terrible day, things are going wrong, there are 2 things that you can do to change that mood instantaneously. And the first one is gratitude. We know this. It is really hard to be in that bad, nasty place. It's in fact impossible when we start listing things that we're grateful for. So something I have done for years is every single morning I list 5 unique things that I am grateful for. And I love doing that. I just go about the world kind of looking at the world in a different way. If I'm having a particularly rough day, I do it in the evening as well. You can't do it too many times. So that's the first one is gratitude. The second one is altruism. doing something nice for someone else. And what I love is everyone that's on this webinar chose a profession where they get to do this every single day. But if we go out of our way to do these kind things, it just changes our mood. Something I've committed to since learning this research is I engage in 5 acts of kindness before I get on an airplane. And it is a game changer for me for the airport. So I'm always like just teeny tiny things. I'm holding doors. I'm helping people with luggage. I stand in bookstores and try to get the right book to the right person because I love to read. Like that just changes it. Talk about having an entirely different experience at the airport. Boom. So I'm going to prove this to you. This is the last thing I'm going to ask you to do. Again, I'm going to put 60 seconds on here. I'm going to ask you to grab that phone again, and I want you to text a note of gratitude to someone who's not with you. You have 60 seconds. Don't say my teacher's making me do this. It kind of ruins it. So a text of gratitude to someone's not in the room, because you're doing 2 things at once right now. You're hitting 2 of the biggest hacks to our own happiness: gratitude and altruism. If you have extra time, send more than 1. You've got about 30 seconds left. Awesome. About 10 more seconds. Perfect. Thank you. On behalf of whoever just received that, awesome. And I bet you feel pretty good. It makes us feel pretty good. So that was powerhouse through all of it. I want to say thank you. We're going to get to questions in a second, but before I forget, I have a special invitation for you. If you haven't joined me here, I have this Facebook page that I love. This is my happy place. I post one thing every single day, 365 days a year in the morning to get your day started off on a positive note. And I have a whole bunch of videos there. I do some I did a book study for Take Time for You over the summer. I'll do another one. The 180 Days book just came out, so I'll be leading us through that as well. So know that that is there for all of you. My contact information is here too. So email is the easiest way to get a hold of me if anyone's got questions. There's that Facebook page. There I am on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm going to just leave this screen up here. And I'd love to take questions, hear what everyone's thinking. I could talk about this forever, so you got to just shut me down.
Tina, thanks for your energy, and that is such appreciated. And indeed, keep that there. I hope you indeed get some interaction. You'll probably have many new followers before our time together is up. You know, the research that you've shared is really compelling, and I remember reading some research on rewards, and the research on rewards goes something like this: the idea that if you're debating between what works with motivating people, carrots or sticks, sticks are obviously scare people and keep them from making progress, and then carrots are fine, but you always need a bigger carrot. In fact, even people who are outside of education in sales positions find themselves to lose motivation and momentum if they're not attached to something more meaningful, which is amazing to me. I would have guessed those hard-boiled sales types could have been continuously emotionally motivated by simply chasing those criteria, but apparently not. Apparently you need to be connected to bigger things, which kind of goes right along with your acts of altruism. Why do you suppose that's true, Tina?
Yeah, you're spot on that. It's fascinating. So I have studied a lot of that as well. I think Daniel Pink originally talked about that. And then it's come up again and again. Sean Achor, A-C-H-O-R, he's a happiness researcher. He has one of the best TED Talks around. Sean Achor, A-C-H-O-R. But he talks about this in that like hedonic treadmill, right? So when we reach one goal, we have to get to the next goal. And his claim, and his research to back it up, is our formula is backwards. We feel like if we get X, then we will be happy. And what he says we have to do is reverse it. Be happy first to get the thing. Like not to get the thing, but to be happy first instead of that continual chasing. And he has quite a few books where he's kind of laid out things to do, which hits I love to apply that to Maslow's work and my work, how I've kind of adjusted it to the self-actualization and transcendence of just those little things that we can do on a daily basis to make it a habit, ding, 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 and a ritual. Things like the writing down what you are grateful for every single day, the engaging in acts of kindness, reliving. He talks about at the end of the day, reflecting on like the best 5 minutes of your day and actually replaying that in your mind. It hits the same spot in your brain once again. So those rituals and habits to make it so that our life, we're just putting the happiness first, instead of thinking that if we do this thing, it will make us happy, but to know that we can be happy right now in the absolute present moment. And I think there's a lot to be said too about different personality types. I'm fascinated with all those kind of personality tests and just figuring out what works for you individually. I think it's so hard to put a blanket over what works for everyone. So the more I think we know ourselves, the more that taps into all of this around just feeling as good as we can possibly feel.
Yeah, really. And I think an awful lot of it is instinct too. We're, as a species, we're a whole lot better in tribes than we are on our own. And the idea, it shouldn't surprise us that our basic instincts are to want to be connected, to want to be connected to something greater than ourselves. And usually that involves other people. I mean, unfortunately, in education, we have deliberately compartmentalized educators and made them work alone. That was by design. The idea we're actually natural as a species want to work together. So I think it's very natural. So I think it's really cool you brought attention to it. Karen asked, is our self-care extrinsic or intrinsic?
Such a good question. I think there's both, and I describe it slightly differently, but see if this makes sense to you, Karen. So I've been thinking about this a lot. I think there's two different types of self-care, and this might tap into that. Right now, so the first type of self-care is self-care that feels so good, right? Bubble baths and chocolate cake and drinking wine, right? And there is that I am all for that. Here's the hard part. That's not going to actually make us feel better long-term. So that kind of might be the extrinsic motivation, if you will. The self-care that I really talk about, and I think, again, that you need both, is the self-care. And right now, I got to work on a different phrase. I just keep saying it's the self-care that sucks, because that just hits home for us. It's a choice, making the hard choice, right? So some examples of that, and I think this goes to kind of maybe the intrinsic side, if we're thinking of it that way. I would rather sit up and watch another episode on Netflix, but the choice that I make for my own self-care is to go to bed. So that's the long-term self-care. The choice to go work out when I don't necessarily want to. The choice to drink water before I have coffee in the morning. So I think it's there's a balance between the two different kinds of self-care. I get real nervous because some people are like, I think self-care, the term self-care is becoming another thing that we feel guilty about, and that it's turning into, when we hear self-care, we think of like consumer self-care and that total just feel good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we really want to bring our best selves to our students, it's not about eating chocolate cake and drinking wine. It is about setting ourselves up to feel the best that we possibly can, so that we are not presenting this stressed out, burned out, exhausted teacher to our students, knowing that those mere neurons are in play and students feed off of our emotions. So I think there's not just one kind of self-care. And I think maybe, and Karen, I love that question because I'm going to think about it more. If we divide that extrinsic and intrinsic, it might hit on those just two different types of self-care, and knowing they're both important, but the one, I would associate that intrinsic with that need to like make the hard choices. I don't know if that answered it or not. I appreciate that question, Karen.
Yeah, I think I don't see a follow-up to that, so I'm going to assume the best. And Karen, please do jump in and if you'd like and follow up with that. But that, you know, I like how you expand on that, because, you know, you can certainly feel happy in the moment, but that peacefulness that gets us to where we really need to do. Have you looked at some of the research on meditation, and where do you have you spoken on that?
Yep. And that I plug that into levels 5 and 6, but also which is the higher self-actualization and transcendence. It really hits in that transcendence level. But again, one of those strategies that we can use at any time to help us kind of get to the next level. I love all of the research. I love that we're starting to talk about this with students. And there's lots of ways that we can do it. So in my books, I present, you know, because sometimes when we think mindfulness, we go, people are like, oh, she's a hippie from Colorado. Like, I got the beads on, I'm doing the whole thing. But I will say this. So they go straight to meditation, and I'm all for meditation, but it just doesn't work for some people. There's lots of things we can do. So some examples, like even just going for a mindful walk, like leaving the phone, leaving the headphones, just walking outside for a few minutes and being fully present. That's mindfulness. Setting an intention. At the start of my workshops, I have my participants set an intention for themselves into something they want to get out of the day. Writing themselves a permission slip. That's another Brene Brown trick that she talks about, like, give yourself permission to be fully present today. Give yourself permission to eat lunch. Give yourself permission to connect with a new colleague. That's another way to be mindful. There's just a whole slew of things. So mindfulness, and that's another one of Sean Aker's recommendations too, of how we can put happiness first. There's more and more coming out about that as well. And so many great apps to help with that too. A ton of free apps. The Calm, CALM app is free for educators. It's a super quick application. And that's regularly, I want to say it's like a $70 or $80 program. So that's got meditations and timers, and you can get bedtime stories, and it's awesome.
That's fun. I'll tell you, Tina, I'm kind of encouraged about meditation. I've been meditating for many, many years, and I have actually, after presenting for 20 years, I was actually asked last year to lead some sessions on it. And I mentioned it. I don't even advertise it. And I think there's a greater conversation for this. But you just mentioned something about all these apps. You know, there's a lot of being written now about the impact of technology on our stress levels. Is that something that you've addressed in your work about how that can impact?
For sure. And the irony is so funny, because I talk about that in workshops. And then as you notice, there's numerous times that I ask us to pull our phone out and do something. So yes, it's all the advantages of technology. What I'm an advocate for is us being in control of our technology instead of technology controlling us. And I have in the 180 days book, I have in fact more than 1 week where we talk about different ways to kind of get control of that. Everything from extreme measures to like offline October, going off social media, you know, for 30 days, to there's a challenge that I always present, 40 for 40 challenge, which is for 40 minutes a day for 40 days in a row to get off all technology. And here's the key, do something that you love to do, because we oftentimes feel like we don't have time. And I use myself as an example. I'm continually working on this. You know, I love to read, and there was a few years where I didn't feel like I would have told you that I didn't have time to read. And when I did a time audit of my day, I realized, oh boy, I'm spending a whole lot of time scrolling or watching things, which is fine. Again, it's a personal choice, but I choose to make the choice that I know for me personally, I feel so much better when I'm reading than when I'm scrolling. So doing things to kind of get control of that technology, knowing, again, all of the apps and things that help us, but also not letting it take over. It's a really fine line that we live there. And in fact, oh my gosh, as I'm sure you probably know, the more and more research coming out of how many times we check our email, how many times we pick up our phone. I think a lot of it goes back to mindfulness and awareness. I think most of us were fascinated with those of us with Apple phones, that when the screen time app came up and showed us how much we were on our phone, many of us were like, and again, you got to put the data in front of us. When I saw that, I made a very conscious effort to bring that number down, but I didn't even know what the number was till they told me. So that tracking it, monitoring things to be able to make changes is so important.
Sure is. Yeah, I've done some work with some folks who do some app and game design, and the light that's in our phone isn't designed to help us sleep. It's not designed to help us.
The people that work on the apps, I mean, it is meant to hit that it's a true total addiction. Like they are tapping into everything that they need to tap into to get us coming back, and that hit of the dopamine hits to be able to, it's just fascinating and terrifying.
Well, on a fascinating and terrifying note, take us to somewhere warm. Tina, tell us about, and I love the qualitative examples, but tell us, I love the T-shirt example of that class there, of that group there that embraced your work. I love that. That's exactly where I wanted to go. Tell us about a case study or something. That doesn't have to be formal, but just tell us a story about some folks that have been impacted by your work and how they've embraced it and what's it meant to them.
Yes, I could share. This is where I get like full body goosebumps. I could share so many stories. I'll share one that hits really close to home. Very recently, a group of educators that I had worked with, and they were administrators and worked at a kind of a district level in an educational service unit. Were leading folks through the self-care work and then pulled together themselves kind of an accountability group. So both of the books are set up really that you can do this together, because we know so many of us need accountability. And one of the women in the group, when it got to safety, one of the recommendations for safety is to make the doctor's appointments that we don't want to make. And she'd never had a mammogram, and her colleagues had encouraged her, and her action plan that she set for herself was to do that. And she did, and they found breast cancer, but they found it early, and she was brave enough to go and get done what she needed to done, and she is on it. Just I'm teary just even thinking about it, that she was brave enough to know this is something that I need to do and had the support to go do it. So I have those incredible stories. I have a teacher that I worked with in Vermont that has lost, I don't know, a crazy amount of weight because she decided to put herself first. She goes to spin class and takes care of herself, changed her entire eating plan, and she will tell you hands down she is a better teacher than she ever was before by taking care of herself. And then I have all, like the group that you saw, the Flossom group, I have all these kind of self-care groups popping up. In fact, the 180 Days book is dedicated to all of these kind of grassroots self-care clubs that are popping up all over, of people just committed to going through the book together to do the work and really figure out some ways that they can make changes in their life. There's little tiny, I'm such a firm believer that small changes are sustainable. So making those teeny tiny changes and checking in with each other in really loving ways. So my heart explodes every time. I feel like at least once a week I get an email or a message from someone sharing either something that they've done with an accountability partner or a group that they're started, and just the incredible ramifications, not only for the adults in the group, but how it's impacting the students that they interact with as well.
Well, and the idea that you really will love others more when you love yourself to a greater extent. We tend to believe that the more we sacrifice, but it absolutely isn't true. We don't have as much to give. We don't have as many tools to offer. We're not as light on our feet and able to adapt to the situation. So all those things really matter. We're almost ready to close up, and I'd love to have anybody else that has any questions, please post them now, because we'd love to make sure for that. What do we got here? We got a couple thanks. Thanks for the offering. I guess we got some folks that have liked that. Tina, is there anything else about your work that we should know before we sign off as we tie this up into posterity and when you have this video? What else about your work that would be really nice for folks to know that it's too important not to share?
Yeah, gosh, I feel like it's my opportunity, and what's going to happen is 10 minutes from now, I'll be like, oh man, I didn't say the thing, whatever the thing was. I just truly want to thank everyone. It is just so incredibly honoring to be able to do this work. I've lived it. I'm on the journey myself, and to just know that I'm cheering people on. If you go, even if you don't ever post anything on that Facebook page, to hear and read other people. So there's up to, I don't know, there's well over 6,000 educators that are part of that group, and to just cheer each other on. It's not about me. I'm just the conduit to kind of put it out there and let people play with things and share ideas. And it just makes me so happy because I worry the public perception of teachers right now is not good. Most of us probably saw the article in Forbes that we don't have a teacher shortage. We have a teacher attraction problem, which is absolutely true. There's a lot of things that we need to work on. And it's my mission to start with the teachers that we have themselves and retain them.
So when you've given your last speech and you're walking off the stage, what are you going to be famous for, Tina? What will we look back and say, oh my goodness, this is what she contributed to the profession? What were you going to be famous for?
I probably tripped on the way off the stage. No, I'll be the woman that tripped. No, I'll be the woman the self-care woman. When I go places and they make the connection between, because I train on a lot of things besides this work. So when someone says, oh my gosh, you're the self-care lady, that there could not be a better compliment to hear. So I want to be known as the self-care lady.
Well, I think you're already there. So I'm just glad it's not your last speech because you've got great energy. And I hope that if the folks that have heard you will, I'm looking at your PowerPoint now, see you live at some point soon here and get you on a plane so you can do some nice things for people and get you to work and use your tools. So thanks, Tina, so much. And thanks, Brandy and Christopher, for making this possible. Thank you all the guests for being here. Tina, it was a pleasure. Really nice meeting you. I'm sure I'll see you out on the road here somewhere. But thank you so much for connecting. And thank you, Solution Tree, for bringing us together. That was nice of them to do that for us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good night. All right. Everybody, have a great night. And thanks again. Take care.
Perfect. Thank you.